Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. In this series on Majjhima Patipada, that is the middle path, we have so far 6 talks. Today is the 7th one, and the subject is is the steering a mid-course or a middle course through the journey of life. And the analogy of a steer or steering wheel in a car is interesting. You see, a driver has mastery over the car exactly because he has complete control over the steering wheel. The purpose of this device, steering wheel, is to control the vehicle, control the direction of the car, the direction in which it is moving, and thereby it directs the entire the course of journey. So a person, there are these 3 pursuits. We have discussed already the 2 pursuits of, one is a pursuit of pleasure, the other is a pursuit of pain, and the third is the pursuit of spirituality, Dhamma. And that is going to be the subject today. Now, pursuit of pleasure and pain as extreme religious practices really, you see, is like a river that perpetuates and prolongs samsaric bondage. Both pleasure and pain arise from 2 things. One is ignorance and the other is craving. Because of craving to exist, bhavatanha, and supported by ignorance, unknowing, the abysmal darkness of unknowing. Now, these are the 2 factors responsible for these 2 pursuits which perpetuate samsaric existence and dukkha in that way, and suffering. Now Lord Buddha discovered the middle way, the middle path, the pursuit of spirituality which is within us already. And all that is required is we have to organize our lives, manage ourselves in such a way as to be able to rouse the positive and the good and the noble qualities within us. So middle path approach is just that. It's a mid-course progression in the journey of life. Life is a journey. It has a beginning, it has an end. And journey has, you see, it has a goal, a destination, and it begins somewhere. So life also is the same thing. So life has a beginning and it definitely has an end in death. One is born only to die, and in between death and birth you keep on accumulating karma, this karmic potency, power, and that catapults at the end of life, that catapults a person to a new state of existence, and one is reborn in a new plane of existence. So this birth, death and rebirth, this wheel of life goes on and on and on, endlessly, aimlessly. And these religious practices which are supposed to ennoble the human mind, human being, but if they are motivated by avijja bhavatanha, ignorance and the craving for existence, to continue to exist, these two factors motivate, and that is how the samsaric bondage is perpetuated by these so-called the religious practices. Now, Buddha's discovery of the Four Noble Truths enabled the seekers of truth to have a third alternative, and that is the pursuit of Dhamma in day-to-day life. And that is middle path. And it boils down to, two things last time we mentioned, that it boils down to number one, a course of training oneself with a purpose, with a goal to achieve something. And I gave the example in a family. The father happened to be an athlete and a champion one, and then later on he became a professor, and he was, he had connection with these sports events and so on. Now his son was just the opposite. He was a rickety fellow who never cared about sports or games or anything. He was a book lover, and a book, So the father managed to get this boy, and the whole family in fact, to witness an event, a very big sports event. And this boy was completely, taken up by that, and he decided to develop his muscles like his father. And he became a champion too by training the body. So here he trained the body and became a bodybuilder and a big champion in that particular, event. So here the middle path course is training oneself in mind, in building the mind. Mind is a mind, M-I-N-E. It is absolutely filled with precious things and any amount, any quantity. So now it's a matter of managing this mind. You see. So the pursuit of spirituality or Dhamma simply means that you manage yourself in such a way that you get the best out of yourself. You don't need to go outside yourself at all. So now, the very first step in this pursuit of spirituality is Shila. There are 5 steps in Shila, in the development of virtue or moral development of moral purity. You see, it's a training in morality. Morality deals with what is good, what is bad, and why a thing is good and why a thing is bad. And if a thing is bad, it should be avoided. It should be done away with. And if it is good, it should be cultivated and developed. That is the purpose of morality. Now, Shila therefore is the foundation of the middle path approach. Steering life through a middle course that avoids all the accidents and difficulties in a journey. Now the driver, a good motor driver, he knows that if he has complete control over the steering wheel, he has control over the entire journey and over the entire the vehicle itself. So, like this steering, we have the mind. And if we know how to steer this mind, control this mind, and thereby enable it to direct life from the bondage of samsara to the freedom of Nibbana. It's as simple as that. But not easy. Indeed, very difficult. But that which is difficult is precious, not cheap. That which is easy is cheap, useless, worthless. That which is difficult is worthy. So the path of Sila may not be very easy. It may be difficult for some or for many, but it is worthwhile. That is the story in Dhammapada, the Gatha 246 to 248. I will read it out. Yopanang atipateti musavadan cha bhasati loke adinnang adiyati paradaran cha gacchati suramera panancha yo naro anuyunjati ideva solo kasming mulang khanati attano evam bho purisho janahi papa dhamma asanyata matang lobho adhammo cha chirang dukkha yarandhayung. One who destroys life, utters lies, takes what is not given, that is steals, goes to another man's wife, and is addicted to intoxicating drinks. Such a man digs up his own root even in this very life, in this very world. Know this, O good man, evil things are difficult to control. Let not greed and wickedness drag you to protracted misery. Yes, evil things are very difficult to control, but that is the only way you can get out of it. So Sila, there are these 5 steps, you see, in managing the most precious power called Sila, virtue. Now these 5 steps are Sila Sikha. Sila as a mode of training oneself in virtue, in moral practice. By training means instilling discipline and self-restraint within ourselves. Sikha here means actually ability to discipline. Sikha is discipline. Sikha means vinayam. Yo sikhati so vineti. He who trains himself, he brings about self-restraint and disciplines himself. So when a person has undertaken the Panchashila, that's a panacea, that's a medicine for all diseases which Lord Buddha prescribed. And a person who voluntarily undertakes to practice these Panchashilas, the 5 precepts of moral purity, he or she can see the change in life in matter of days. If you sincerely pursue this course of disciplining yourself by training yourself on the 5 precepts, the result will be fantastic. A flower has value and it is loved because because of the fragrance. So when a person, trains himself in sila, in moral precepts, it is like he is, developing what is called virtue, the power of the fragrance of virtue, the power and potency of virtue. So Sila Sikha is meant for Sila Bhavana, development of virtue. In the Dhammapada again, you have this verses 54 to 56. Na puppha gandho pativatameti na chandanang tagara mallikava satancha gandho pativatameti sabbadisa sappuriso pavati. Not the sweet smell of flowers, not even the fragrance of sandalwood, tagara or jasmine flower blows against the wind. But the fragrance of the virtuous man or woman blows against the wind indeed. Truly the virtuous man pervades all directions with the fragrance of his virtue. So virtue has a fragrance. Of all the fragrances, sandal or tagara or blue lotus or jasmine, the fragrance of virtue indeed is by far the sweetest. This is Dhammapada 55, verse number 55. So he says, faint is the fragrance of tagara, a very powerful fragrance indeed, the tagara flower, and sandal. But excellent indeed, is the fragrance of the virtuous, wafting even amongst the gods. The fragrance of virtue reaches the gods. Wonderful idea. And it's a fact. A virtuous man attracts the attention of these devas. A virtuous man can actually determine to get, help and all kinds of things which the devas are able to give or able to, provide. A virtuous man in Ceylon, a monk, I will give from Vishuddhimagga, I will give a little story, it's worthwhile. For 60 years he lived in a little cave. He had undertaken the Shila that he will not allow his eyes to go up, going around here and there and see this object, that object, and then get, all this seeing or having no control over the senses. He will have perception of these scenery, whatever he sees, that will occur in the mind again, in the form of, he will just memory, he will remember all those, and that will come on the way to his meditative practice, and he can never achieve, any higher meditative experiences. So, he undertook to restrain his eye, all the senses, the restraint over the senses. So he never looked this way up and all, no. From morning till night, he spent the whole day in meditating or studying or doing something. The life of a seclusion, complete cut off from the world. And he was preparing himself. And he used to go for Pindapata and bring his, live on that. Very simple life, a life completely dedicated to spiritual development. Now, people came to know about him. The king also came to know about him, and the king of the country at that time was a rather conceited person. He thought he can get the darshan of this monk in his palace and he will order him to come. So he sent a man, one of his ministers, he said, go and tell him, the king wants to see you. He wants to have a darshan by ordering the monk to come and give him darshan. What a wonderful idea. But this is what the people in power, they get so deluded about themselves. So this king did that. And this monk, he didn't care. He just ignored the whole thing. For the second time, again this minister came, he says, Bhante, please come on, otherwise my life will be miserable. I said, look here, that's your business, not mine. I don't go anywhere. I only go once a day for Pindapata and come back and do meditation here. I am not going to give up this effort. You see, this is my way of life and I am not going to give it up. So the king got very annoyed. He says, what? Second time he says, no. Okay, third time he sent him. He said, he didn't go, he didn't care. So the minister got very frightened and what to do, and anyhow he had to tell him. So the king said, okay, you go and order all the women in this town that they can't feed their babies today unless that monk comes to me. So when they are ordered and the people are afraid, if they have caught something, this king was a peculiar chap. Nobody could depend upon him about his temper. So they had to, starve the little fellows, these babies, of their milk. Now this minister went to the monk and said, Bhante, all these little fellows they are going to be suffering. So, please, for the sake of these little fellows, please come. He said, okay, all right, come on, I'll come. So he went there. So they gave him a very nice room in the palace. He said, Bhante, you have to stay here and give us some talks. Now it was imprisonment for him. It was jail. But he couldn't help. So they brought the Pindapata and he ate food and then he gave a discourse. He never raised his head like this. He just kept it like this, as he was used to. So now, when the king came and the queen also, he simply said, may the king be happy. With his head down as usual. He never saw the king nor the queen. He just said, may the king be happy. So next time the queen came. And the queen was also, she came with her people and they sat and bowed down and said, Bhante, we want to hear Dhamma. May the king be happy. To the queen also, the Bhante said, may the king be happy, because he never saw her. He just kept the eye down like this. So whoever came, he simply said, may the king be happy. Now the Jhaduwala, one who came to clean the room, and he bowed down and he said, may the king be happy. So everybody became king to him. Now so it became a joke or what, they went and told the monks, look, this Bhante is doing like this, he is calling everybody king. So these monks went to the king, Bhante, and they said, Bhante, what is it? You are calling everybody king? He said, look, my dear, I don't see who it is. Whoever comes and sits and then seeks for Dhamma, I just tell some Dhamma. That's all. Now, the king when the king heard this, he said, he's making everybody king. That's a very terrific thing, so let him go. So he said, all right, release him. So they released him. Next day, a big crowd of monks came in his cave. They were going about in these various caves. We have very famous caves with a lot of paintings of the lives of Buddhas and so on. Now he had never seen these paintings on the wall and on the roof. You see, on the cave. He had never looked at the cave like this, to see these beautiful frescoes. So these monks said, Bhante, do you know there are a lot of this wonderful life story of 7 Buddhas there? He said, no. Is it? You know, I was here, I am living here from the last 60 years. Now I know that there are these beautiful pictures of Lord Buddha from those who have the eye to see. So now I know. That means he said, I don't have the eye. It's a way of telling them that you youngsters have, you see, eyes to go and see everything around here, that you don't have control over your eyes. No sangvara. So the first step in sila is to develop self-control. Silang sangvarathaya. The purpose of practicing the sila is to develop more and more self-restraint, self-control. That turns a person into a very disciplined person. A disciplined person has some complete control in whatever he says, whatever he does, whatever he thinks. So sila, by endowing a person with this ability to control, self-control and self-restraint and discipline, this is a very, very great acquisition indeed. So by following these silas, you develop parami. All the 10 paramis can be developed in some measure. Now for instance, if you are practicing dana, you give dana as a spiritual practice, as a middle path approach to life, to overcome greed, to overcome hatred, to overcome delusion, lobha, dosa, moha. Now to overcome these mental defilements, as you train yourself to be more and more charitable and generous, your mind gets more and more controlled. You have control over your greed, you have control over your other defilements. So by practicing dana, one can control. And dana is one of the shilas. Adinna dana vermani sikha padang samadhiyami. I voluntarily undertake not to steal, not to take what is not given to me. Now this moral precept I undertake voluntarily in order that I may have complete control over my life. A greedy man has no control over himself. A hateful man has no control over himself, or a deluded man. So by practicing dana, this particular moral precept of not taking anything which does not belong to you, but instead you practice dana, give. You love, you become generous, and you practice charity. So by doing this, not only you purify your, purify your mind, but you develop a certain spiritual perfection. Now for instance, there is a story in the Jataka of Bhagavan Buddha as a Bodhisattva. he was a tapasvi, an ascetic practicing meditation in the jungle. He lived in the forest, and his daily routine was to go and collect some leaves, what you call these Brahmi leaves. Ondelaka in Kannada, Ondelaka. So he will go, in Himalaya is full of all those. I've been to those places and I've lived on those too. So now these big Ondelaka, the round, leaves, they are called Gotukola in Ceylon and Thankuni Pata in Bengali. You see, it's a medicinal herb. So he would go and collect these from the jungle, come, and he had a small little pot, and he will put the entire thing in the pot and water, and put some water, and he will collect some fagot, some dry wood, and he will put this little the pot on three stones and on a makeshift oven, and he will boil, and he will take it exactly at 11, between 11 and 11:30. Once a day, that was his food. He lived like that years and developed his all the samadhi and various supernormal powers. He could fly, he could plunge into the earth as though he is plunging into the river. And he will walk on the river as though he is walking on ground. So all these things he cultivated, and he lived like that, very frugal, just once a day. That was his meal. So he developed very powerful virtue, Shila Bhavana. That Shila Bhavana, the development of virtue had now become Shila Vishuddhi, a state of purity of virtue. It's like in the Dhammapada you have the flower is pure object, and it becomes very valuable and very lovable when it has lot of fragrance. There are flowers which are very beautiful but no fragrance at all. So people don't care about those flowers. People don't use those flowers for puja, no. For puja you offer only fragrant flower because you are seeking the fragrance of virtue in yourself. So when you offer flower to Lord Buddha, and particularly fragrant flower, in your mind you should remind yourself, Bhagavan, I offer this flower so that my life too will become like this fragrant flower. My actions should be beautiful like the flower. Whatever I say will be very beautiful like this flower. And my mind will be pure like this flower. And I will acquire the spirituality, the fragrance of spirituality in the form of parami and vishuddhi, purity and perfection. So now Sila Bhavana, by developing Sila as moral power, moral potency, you see, you develop the mind and the purity of the mind to an extent that nothing on earth can change or can, tempt you. So this kind of purity he had developed and perfection. So this, Sakko the Devanamindu, the king of Devas of the Tabatingsa Devaloka, his seat is called Pandukambala. It's a precious stone, yellow precious stone on which he sat, and he gave his, he was the king, all his judgments and everything. So his seat became hot, heated by the power of the virtue of the Bodhisattva. So the Bodhisattva, he did nothing. He was living a secluded, poor bhikkhu life. But the power he had developed within himself, this power of Shila, that affected this Deva. You see, who is a protector of Dhamma. And the present Sakko Deva, Indra, is a great devotee of Lord Buddha. He is a Sotapanna. He is one who has entered into the stream of Nibbana. So now, when it became hot, that's his way of getting the message, so to say. So now, he said, what's this? Who has developed more virtuous power than me? He thought. Then he used his supernormal power and found out this ascetic. He said, my goodness, that is his life. He has a terrific purity of virtue. So let me go and test him whether is he a really Bodhisattva type, or is he just another fellow running after power, psychic power. Let me go and test him. So he took the form, he changed himself in the form of a Brahmin ascetic. There are two types of ascetics those days in India. So one was a free samana, he didn't care about anything of this Chaturvarna caste system and this and that. He had given up all that. He didn't believe in any one of those. And we are supposed to be samanas too. So, as a samana, they don't believe in all that. But the Brahmin will retain his Brahman title, though he has renounced his home life, the household life. But still, he wants to have this Varna thing, that big Varna thing, right, painted on his forehead. He will go about. He will say, I am a Brahmin. You say ascetic. Parivrajaka. Ascetic means parivrajaka. They are the wandering fellows. They don't remain in one place. So now, this, he went as a parivrajaka, and he said, oh, I am very hungry. This was about 11, past 11, he had just, he took that pot out, and he had a little bit of a piece of stone, like a kadapa stone, and on that was his plate. And he wanted to put this whole thing on that and eat, and drink that water also. You see. So now, when he came, he said, I am in Bhikshatana, I am on my arms round. Oh yes, oh what a great, favor you have done to me. I bow down at your feet, oh Tapasvi. And he gave his entire thing that he had boiled, and it had cooled down. He was just going to eat, and he offered it to him. He said, here you are. This is the, bhiksha I have made it for you. So Indra took it, and he went away. Now he came like this consecutively for 3 days, and you see, once he gives away the food, he doesn't cook twice, because after 12 o'clock he will never take anything. He led the bhikkhu life, very strict bhikkhu life, so that after 12 o'clock, no eating business at all. So he gave it that, the whole thing to him, and Indra saw that. So he vanished and he went away. Next day he again came, the same dress and same thing. 3 days he tested, and 3 days he remained hungry, but never cooked. After 12. Now Indra, on the third day after he received it, he fell at his feet. He showed himself as Indra, as Sakko Devanam Indra. Devanam Indra, the king of the gods. So, he says, Lord, you are truly virtuous. Are you fulfilling your parami? He kept quiet. He didn't want to, dramatize. He sort of advertised himself that I am a bodhisattva and all that. No. Very humble. He just kept quiet and he understood. So Sila now has acquired that kind of spiritual force from the state of Sikha or training, learning. From that state he had become, he developed the Sila Bhavana, the intrinsic power of Sila, like the fragrance of the flower. The Sila has its own fragrance, its own power. He developed that. And then further it grew into a Vishuddhi. There are 7 stages of spiritual purification. He had developed into that. So he gave away, he didn't care about fasting 3 days, but he gave up. He loved to give as a Sila. So now, when Indra became convinced, he fell at his feet. He says, Lord, please take this. Now he brought some special food from Devaloka. Very powerful thing that gives him enough nourishment for days together. So he said, no, I have offered you, how can I take your food? He said, no, this is not, I will take your food. But I also want to give you something, you please take. It's small little, it's like a toffee. Small little toffee. He says, why do you want, is it an exchange? He said, no exchange, no. You are my teacher now. I am offering this as a Guru Dakshina. He said, all right, if it is Guru Dakshina, very good, I will accept. But not as an exchange for what I have given you. He said, no. 100% I give you, I tell you that. Then he disappeared. So he knew that the Devas had this capacity. So Sila grows in power. So never, underestimate the power of virtue. One Gandhi was good enough to bring freedom for India. And all that he did was trying to follow his Sila. Panati pata veramani sikha padang samadhiya. That also he didn't do it very perfectly, but anyhow he did it. He said, ahimsa as a principle. Nowhere in any part of the world history up to that time has any country gained freedom through non-violence. Only through violence they have been doing it. But they never got. But Gandhiji managed because the power of ahimsa, non-violence, as a virtue is indeed very great. So I have only, today, this much, I will leave it at this. The perfection of Sila is the subject. So next time it will be this 7 Vishuddhi, 7 stages of spiritual purification, and Sila being the very foundation of that. Unless you do the Sila, you can't develop the perfection or rather purification of the mind, purification of wisdom, purification of stage by stage, 7 stages. And this will be on the basis of Ratha Vinita Sutta, a sutta in Madhyama Nikaya, where you see a relay a very interesting story indeed. The king wanted to go from one place to another, and it's about 100 miles. So he put 7 relay coaches, and he goes there. So that analogy was very, very interesting indeed. So that will be the subject next time. With this I conclude. May the grace of Bhagavan Buddha surround your lives with wisdom and virtue. May you all be happy. Sukhino bhavantu.